Hello again, classy people, this is Josh, the Top Hat Gamer, and this week I'm reviewing Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number. The first game was a perfect blend of neon visuals, over-the-top violence, and a soundtrack so memorable that I occasionally find myself nodding along even though it's not actually playing anywhere. So how does Hotline Miami 2 stack up? Let's find out. Taking place both before and after the events of the original Hotline Miami 2 presents players with a very Pulp Fiction-esque plot, featuring multiple protagonists whose stories intersect throughout the course of the game. Much of the game focuses on the fallout from the infamous events of the first game. The former protagonist is on trial, there are a group of fans committing copycat killings, and members of the Russian mob are struggling to regain their former power. On top of that, we're introduced to a corrupt cop with a taste for murder and a struggling writer investigating the first game's killings for his upcoming book. In comparison to the previous game's light approach to narrative detail, Hotline Miami 2 presents us with a surprising amount of fleshed out characters with their own motivations and personalities. In a surprising turn, we're also presented with some flashback scenes set before the first game that help flesh out the game's lore. While it'll certainly make you think, the way you jump from year to year and character to character can be a little bit confusing, and if you weren't paying attention to the original Hotline Miami, a few of the more interesting events can fall a little bit flat. The game's presentation is where it truly shines, with a vibrant neon-soaked colour scheme and a pixel art style that, despite its simplicity, is cringe-worthy in its depiction of ultra-violence. The game also features a lot of VHS-style effects and menus, helping to sell Hotline Miami 2's old-school style. The character portraits that appear during conversations have a surreal quality to them, appearing surprisingly detailed and strangely unsettling at the same time. It lends itself nicely to the overall feel of Hotline Miami 2, where everyone and everything appears to be just a little bit off. When people talk about Hotline Miami, it's impossible to avoid mentioning the soundtrack. The game's constant, thumping electronic music is actually trumped by the sequel, which features tracks that are somehow more memorable than those that came before. Honestly, the soundtrack combines with the vibrant visuals in an almost hypnotic way as you'll retry again and again while promising yourself that the last try would be 20 minutes ago. It's highly addictive. Hotline Miami 2 repeats the same top-down twin-stick shooter gameplay as the original, but not without adding a few new quirks here and there. Due to the game's expanded roster of playable characters, you'll be forced to vary your playstyle accordingly. For instance, playing as one of the copycat killers is the most like the original game, where certain masks will give you certain abilities, such as Tony the Tiger's killing punches or Mark the Bear's ability to dual-wield machine guns. Other characters, such as the detective, have faster aiming abilities, while the rider is the only character to employ non-lethal tactics. Some playstyles are more unique than others, and while they can take a little while to get used to, I found myself enjoying the new level of variety. Hotline Miami 2's gameplay is fast and hectic, often presenting you with near impossible situations as you take on large groups of armed enemies at once. On very rare occasions, this challenge is made even more difficult due to glitches that make enemies unhittable, though more often than that, it's the enemy's subpar AI that can remove the challenge entirely. For the most part though, Hotline Miami 2 offers a decent challenge considering how outnumbered and fragile your character is. It's one and done in this game, and while it can sometimes feel like you're banging your head against a wall, the game's quick respawn and non-stop action keep the experience from feeling particularly frustrating, and when you finally do bust through that wall, it feels extremely rewarding. The game features a lock-on mechanic which can both be a blessing and a curse. If you take the time to scout ahead and lock onto the correct target, it can make clearing rooms a breeze. On the other hand, if you find yourself trying to lock on in the middle of combat, it can often focus on the wrong target, resulting in your untimely death. While not a huge gripe with the game, it can be quite aggravating. My only real gripe with the gameplay, aside from the occasionally finicky lock-on, is the level design. In general, a lot of the levels found in Hotline Miami 2 are quite large compared to the original game, and while that's not necessarily a bad thing, it leaves you with a lot of unknown space to be blindsided from. You do have a scouting mechanic that allows you to look past the standard view of your screen, and in the first game that was enough to view most of the level at hand, but now there's so much that you miss. Again, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it often forces you to play a lot safer than you would in the smaller, closed environment. Speaking of playing it safe, there's really only two playstyles available to you in this game. You either go gung-ho and rely on your reflexes as well as a healthy dose of pure luck, or you play it safe and prioritize your enemies. Both are valid options, but the more aggressive style is what will earn you the more points at the end of the level. Hotline Miami 2 feels quite a lot longer than its predecessor, and if you're looking for more content once you hit the credits, the game's hard mode is unlocked. There's not a huge incentive to play through again with this modifier, but if you're looking for a bigger challenge, then tougher enemies and the lack of a lock-on feature await you. It would be easy to say that Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number is more of the same and leave it at that, but its signature visuals and memorable soundtrack are accompanied by a far more varied gameplay experience than the previous game provided. The new focus on narrative is appreciated, and its Pulp Fiction-like approach to having multiple playable characters is a fun way to keep the player intrigued. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number gets the Top Hat Gamer rating of excellent. Few games come along that blend vibrant visuals and a memorable soundtrack with such fast, satisfying gameplay, but Hotline Miami 2 does it wonderfully. While there have been some design choices made here that result in some occasionally frustrating moments, the game does a good job of mitigating that by keeping players in the action with a quick respawn and constant flow of combat. Fans of the first game will find an excellent sequel, and even if you missed the original, Hotline Miami 2 comes highly recommended, so long as you're not turned off by the over-the-top gore. Even if you live in Australia and the game isn't readily available, I feel like it's worth the effort to get your hands on it. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the review informative and stuff. If you missed the last one on Dragon Ball Xenoverse, click the annotation, and maybe think about subscribing. If I've learnt anything from this game, it's that you don't do what strangers ask you to, but you can trust me, right?